Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen, with my co-host, Jim Wilson, Newmark, Caleb Hoppus, Hanlon, and Frank Plum, Workplace HCM. And let's see. Caleb, could you give us a rundown on who we have on the air today, please?
Yes, great lineup today, Herb. We have Bruce White, who's the managing partner of JKJ, Johnson, Kendall, Johnson. Ann Baum, president of Lehigh Valley Reilly Children's Hospital. Tom Rimel, president of Stockwell, Elastomerics. And we have Michael Sharp, the founder and executive chairman of the Sharp Financial Group.
Well, let's get to our first guest, Bruce White, managing partner, Johnson, Kendall, Johnson. Bruce, what is Johnson, Kendall, Johnson? What are you guys doing?
We're a privately owned risk management and insurance brokerage firm.
Mm-hmm. How many employees?
110.
And where are you from originally? How many brothers and sisters? Where are you in the pecking order?
I grew up in a row house in Philadelphia. I'm the third of four, two sisters and a brother.
And in the neighborhood, because you grew up in a row house, I guess there were a lot of kids around. How many kids were in the circle that you hung out with? And what was your role with those kids?
Probably 20 to 30 regularly. And I would call myself a peacemaker and coordinator of the group.
How's that coordinator and peacemaker fit into your role of growing this organization, Johnson, Kendall, and Johnson, which is 110 people?
Well, I think it's about bringing people together and figuring out who has the right strengths and experiences and putting them in the right place to be successful.
Gotcha. All right. I understand you picked that up as a kid, so that's sort of cool. And what were you doing 8 to 14? What other kinds of stuff were you up to?
Football, baseball, scouts, and a lot of community activities.
Caleb?
Hey, Bruce. So football, baseball, a few other sports. What was your best sport?
I probably was best at baseball, but I love football the most.
What position do you play on the baseball team?
Baseball, I played catcher.
So catcher, that can be a tough position. You not only have to be good technically, but you kind of have to manage personalities. Did you bring that role to the team?
Absolutely. You have to put people in the right place to succeed, to try to win the game. You have to call a game, kind of learn the experiences and habits of the batters and make sure that you put the pitcher in a place that they can be successful too.
Did that come naturally to you?
I think I did, but I'm sure there's people that help me develop those skills.
So managing these personalities, the different aspects, how does that relate to being the managing partner at Johnson, Kendall, and Johnson?
Well, people bring, their own experiences and such, and you have to put them in a spot and put folks in places that they can act as good team members working together, for a common goal.
Jim?
Yeah, you mentioned growing up in a blue-collar neighborhood in Philadelphia, but charity was really important for your family, even though you guys didn't have a lot of money to give. What is it your dad said about charity? I think you had mentioned something to us.
Well, my father, his expression was, the least we can deliver is a smile, right? So it was big about how the energy and passion that we brought to other people.
So what does that have to do with what you do at Johnson, Kendall, Johnson?
We have an expression, passion for a purpose. So we bring that energy to the community.
Also, I understand your dad had his own business and you helped out. What did he do and how young were you when you started working with him?
My brother and I were his only employees, non-paid. So he had a small oil and grease delivery business. And my brother and I helped him while he maintained those relationships with various gas stations and shops in our area.
Didn't you mention that at some point in time you were able to do something? And how'd that make you feel? And what's that have to do with who you are now?
I'm not sure how much a 55-gallon drum weighs, but we would have a cart that we'd bring those into a shop. And I remember the day that I finally was able to tilt that cart back on my own and wheel it in, that I had gotten strong enough to be able to do that.
What's that have to do with who you are now?
Well, I guess those achievements that you do and you learn that we start someplace and you grow in a role. And I grew in my role, helping my dad.
Frank?
Bruce, I heard you have a few siblings. More importantly, I heard you have two sisters. Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, I have to ask, what did your sisters do to you growing up?
Well, my older sister, she would tell me that I had to play Barbies with her. And if I didn't play Barbies with her, she would tell all my friends that I played Barbie. So she terrorized me. And my younger sister, I spent a lot of time watching, but they're both very strong women, even today.
Well, what effect does your sisters have on how you run your business today?
Compassion, love, recognizing family and the balance that you have with family and business.
What are you talking about, love? Frank asked you, what do your sisters have to do with you growing your business? You mentioned love. What are you talking about?
Oh, I tell my people all the time how much I love them, and it's the truth. So it's part of our JKJ family about being together and loving one another.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier that you think you've had a lot of influences. Like who? And what did they do to you?
So certainly teachers and coaches. Mr. Al Angelo, who's a legend in Philadelphia sports, had a big impact on me as a football coach, just teaching me life lessons, always reflecting on what happened on the field is how you represent yourself off the field.
Well, give me that again. What are you talking about?
So he had an expression, when you get to the end zone, hand the guy in the striped shirt the ball because you have to get back to work. And I still believe that today. It's there are achievements, but we need to get back to work, do good things for clients.
So that means that even though you may have a success, you got to be working toward the next one?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. How about sportsmanship? What did you, or what other influences do you have? Who else influenced you and what they do? So
certainly a teacher, Mr. Tom Goncheski, who's still around. So he would teach you that he was a physics teacher in high school, taught me a lot about just being human, having a relationship, an adult relationship with a student. And he was a superb father, superb teacher, former Frankfurt player and such. So just taught me a lot about, being a good human being.
What do you mean he taught you a lot about being a good human being? What are you talking about?
Well, I got to know him the way he represented himself in school was the way he represented himself in the community as a coach. It reflected. So he aligned his life actions with his values. And I always say that's what I try to do. I align my actions with my values.
Well, wait a minute. I read the newspapers and I hear about, CEOs are like rotten people, but you don't sound like a rotten person.
No, it's about giving back, focus on what I do for others. And then we focused an organization, JKJ, on what we do for others, for our employees, for our clients in the community. That's what we're focused on.
So you're telling me that you can be a good guy and grow a business? You
absolutely can, in all aspects of your life.
Tell me more about that. What do you mean?
Well, I think you have to reflect, the human being that you are, and you have to do that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That is what you should do. Those things should align. And when they align, I think it makes you a happier person. And
Caleb, what are you thinking?
You mentioned you were a sports nut, but you also did these other activities. So I'm wondering, have you ever had to make a decision between doing one thing or the other?
Yes. Good question. When I was a kid, I was in Webelos, which is an area of scouts. And the director of that said that I'm spending too much time in sports, and he forced me to make a decision. And I made a decision to go to sports versus scouts. But I think you can have a balance in life. And it's a big part of our organization, of that balance of family and community and work. So yes.
Have you ever had to have that conversation with an employee or a mentee of yours, maybe about where they should be focusing their time, efforts, responsibilities?
If I have, it's been in a proactive way to try to help them figure out that balance. We even bring in a consultant, Neen James, who's an organizational consultant, but she really helps us, recognize that there are those challenges in all of our lives, but only in a positive way. I've never had to reprimand someone or something. We really have an unbelievable group of people that balance things in life very well.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like you're like the master coach, Bruce. Am I picking that up correctly?
Yeah, master and commander, I guess, right? But yes, yeah, but but it's a flat organization, Herb. Mm-hmm. You know, we encourage everyone in our organization to be a leader. Mm-hmm. We're not a hierarchical organization.
What's the website address for this organization known as Johnson Kendall Johnson?
JKJ.com.
Give me that one more time.
JKJ.com. Johnson Kendall Johnson.
You've been speaking with Bruce White, managing partner at Johnson Kendall Johnson here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com. Back in a moment, right after this quick break. Don't go away.
You now can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Simply visit executiveleadersradio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your advisors. Yes, this radio and online social media exposure is free and quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit executiveleadersradio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors.
We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen, with my co-hosts Jim Wilson, Newmark, Caleb Hoppus, Hanlon, and Frank Plum, Workplace Human Capital Management. I'd like to introduce our next guest, Ann Baum, president of Lehigh Valley Reilly Children's Hospital. And what is Lehigh Valley Reilly Children's Hospital? What are you guys doing?
It's a 117-bed children's hospital located in the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania, and we're part of the Lehigh Valley Health Network.
And tell me where you're from originally, how many brothers and sisters, where are you in the pecking order?
I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, and I am the oldest of three, the oldest sister of two brothers.
All righty. And 8 to 14, what kind of stuff, what's the list look like of what kind of stuff you were involved with?
Diving, swimming, softball, and I also played the harp.
Mm-hmm. Caleb?
So, Ann, you're the oldest of three. Tell us about what your role was like with your siblings.
Well, I always felt like I had to be the leader. I was the oldest. I was the first child in our family on all levels, first grandchild, first niece. And there were always high expectations of me. And I just felt this obligation to know what was going on and be in charge, and often was left to take care of my brothers when my parents went to do things. So I just had to step up and lead.
So there was a lot of expectations and you felt the obligation. I'm kind of curious to hear, did anybody tell you that you had to be in charge, or did you just kind of assume this role?
Well, I think they must have subtly told me. Nobody sat me down and said, you're the leader, you're in charge. But there were such high expectations of you'll do well in school, you'll be nice to people, you'll be friendly, you'll be kind, that I think I assumed the obligation to take that leadership role.
So you can handle it pretty well. It comes from within. What I'm thinking about is a lot of CEOs have strong feelings, the obligations to their employees and stakeholders, but you're the president of a children's hospital, so the stakes are a little higher for your shareholders. How do you manage that?
Well, you can't expect other people to lead if you're not going to lead. And if people are going to show up for work and be reliable, you have to be there and have their back and empower them and be that rock that they can hold on to so that they can get their part of the job done and do it well and know that somebody has their back.
Jim?
And you mentioned working various jobs when you were younger. What were some of the jobs that you had?
Well, my first job after babysitting was I was the basket girl at our local swimming pool. So basically people drop their clothes off and you put it in a basket while they go swimming. And from there, you just worked your way up through the pool hierarchy till I ultimately became a lifeguard. And that was a major achievement when I was young.
So you had to work various roles. So how does working those different roles, working your way up through the hierarchy there relate to your rise as the president of the Children's Hospital?
Well, I think you're always looking for what do you need to learn and know to get to that next level, and anticipating that skill set that you need in order to advance. You can't just expect somebody's going to give it to you. You have to show that you're the right person for that role and demonstrate that you're the leader that they need.
You mentioned jumping from that job and then graduating, I guess, to babysitting. So when you were a babysitter, the important thing is to make sure they ask you back or they tell your friends to have you. What differentiated you from the other babysitters, and how did you make sure that, you got another gig?
Well, my mom was my initial agent, so she would get me the gigs from her friends. But if you didn't show up on time and do a great job, they didn't ask you back. So I always made sure that the kids had fun, that I followed the list of things that the parents were asking. But I also made sure that I did something a little extra and made sure, for example, that the kitchen was clean so that when they got home, they came home to a neat, clean, comfortable house and not a mess that would drive them crazy after a night out.
It seems like you have a really good knack for anticipating and organizing. How does that relate to, I guess, your contribution of the success of the Children's Hospital?
Well, I think it's important to always listen to what's going on in a particular individual's situation and then help them see the silver lining or help them see how to get to that next step. And really looking at the opportunity that's in front of you instead of focusing on the negative. There's always going to be negative, but you can always make it better by making different and new decisions.
Frank?
And I'm interested in hearing about your neighborhood growing up. Were there a lot of kids, a lot of friends? Where did you fit in?
The neighborhood where I grew up, there were tons and tons of kids. We were kind of on the younger end of the age spectrum. But the interesting thing about our neighborhood was everybody around us went to the parochial school and we went to the public school. So it was almost as if we had our neighborhood friends and then our school friends. So we were always having to manage those varying relationships.
Well, it sounds like you're, kind of a chameleon. You can fit in with your private school friends, fit in with the public school friends. Now, how does that help you in your role today in running a children's hospital?
Well, I think one of the most important things as a leader is to be able to listen to where people are coming from, understand their frame of reference, and then adapt your way of relating to them to fit who they are and what they need from you. So really understanding how you can understand other people in order to build a relationship is such an important skill. And especially within a hospital, you have hundreds of people that do different things every single day. You have to understand where they are coming from in order to help support them and empower them. And there's no way I know all of that. I have to listen to them and bring my skill set of supporting them and connecting them to solutions to the table so that I can best help them be successful in their role.
Caleb?
And something that you're carrying with you today that you mentioned in the green room was about community involvement and how important that is. Where did that come from?
Well, my parents were always really engaged in and involved in the community. So it was really the way I grew up. It was just what you do. And community involvement is so important, particularly when you're in a leadership role. It is something that makes the whole community stronger when you give back. And really, it's an obligation. It's the right thing to do. And I think as a leader, it's expected.
So you're not originally from the Lehigh Valley area. You're from the suburb of Chicago. So do you think that kind of helped you grow your roots and grow presence and really help expand the awareness of the Children's Hospital by your community involvement out in the Lehigh Valley?
It did 100%. I think that when you know people in the community, you support what is going on and they know you, that's where not only can you help the community be better and be engaged, but it helps your career as well.
It sounds to me like aside from being the anticipator and the organizer, you're quite all about relationships. That's one of your key strengths, isn't it?
It is. Relationships are how you learn things. It's how you grow, and it's how you make your network stronger. And I think it's so important to engage with other people. I mean, other people are fabulous. There's always something you can learn from them. And it, not only is it fun, but it makes me a better person.
Is that the best part of your job, relationships?
Yes. People matter. And engaging with people matters. And one of
what's the website? What's the website address for the Lehigh Valley Reilly Children's Hospital?
It's lvhn.org.
We've been speaking with Ann Baum, president of Lehigh Valley Reilly Children's Hospital, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't go away. We'll be back in a moment right after this quick break. Don't go away. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Tom Rimel, who is the president of Stockwell Elastomerics. Tom, what is Stockwell Elastomerics? What are you guys doing?
We're a 100-year-old, 100-person company that makes technical materials products primarily using silicone rubber.
Where you from originally? How many brothers and sisters? Where are you in the pecking order?
I grew up in a rural part of Maryland, but only an hour from Baltimore and Washington. I am the middle son of 3 boys.
And what kind of stuff were you up to 8 to 14? What's that list look like?
A lot of different things, some sports activity, a little tennis, a little running, a little weightlifting. My parents were very involved in community affairs, so I went to a lot of meetings and board meetings and zoning meetings. And I was a long-time active member of a church, including 10 years. I was a church organist when I was very young.
Jim?
You were the middle child, although you said due to age difference, you felt like the youngest and oldest at some times. Can you explain that to us a little?
Yeah, for sure. So I was the middle child. My older brother was 6 years older than me. So in that relationship, I felt the dynamic of the younger child. He was the leader. His friends were older. He was doing cool stuff. So in that relationship, I felt like the younger. He also left the home pretty early. So when he left the home to go pursue his dreams, then I became the older brother to my youngest brother. So I feel like I got to experience both sides of those relationships.
So having that experience as a younger brother and the learner and the older brother there to support and guidance, how does that relate to your role as president, Stockwell Elastomerics?
So whether it's at Stockwell or other professional things, I think every room that we find ourselves, whether it's a vendor, whether it's a supplier, whether it's our teammates at work, sometimes we are the younger brother. Sometimes we're learning, we're benefiting from people's experience. And sometimes we're the older brother where we're guiding, we're coaching, we're sharing stories from our past. So I think in my professional career, it was good practice for different situations I would be in later with coworkers and customers and vendors.
Frank?
Tom, I heard one thing there. I heard that you played the church organ for 10 years. What made you want to learn how to play the church organ?
So it was interesting. Our family was always involved in church. It was a stable part and an important part of our background. But one day I just remember telling my mom that I wanted to learn how to do what Nick was doing up there. So my mom played a very active role. She found a teacher in the area. And it was unusual because the organ was a pump organ. You had to pump air through it, and it was a special set of things. But she found a teacher, and I started my music study and stayed with it for 10 years.
Is that something that your mom did? I mean, what did that mean to you that your mom went out and you told her, hey, I want to learn how to play the church organ, and she went out and did that for you? Did she do that a lot in your life?
She did a lot for a lot of people, not just her kids. But as each one of us expressed an interest in a sport or an after school activity, or, hey, we wanted to understand a little bit more about what was going on in the community, she was that connector. She was like, okay, I can introduce you to so-and-so, or I can find you a teacher in that area. And she helped make what we wanted to do or what our dreams were. She helped make those a reality and get us started down the path. What we did with that was up to us.
Tom, I have to ask though, 10 years, really? I mean, like, what made you stick with the church organ for 10 years?
So a couple of things. I think even at a young age, I think being part of that team, and this is an unusual team, right? You have a pastor and you have ushers and you have people in the congregation doing reading. So I think it was good to be part of that team. But more often than not, again, if there wasn't music, it's not a normal church service, right? So I felt an obligation to be there and to be steady and to be a part of that service. And once you're a part of that, it's a great feeling. And just like it is in the workplace, it's a great feeling. So was able to stay with it.
Tom, I'm hearing steady. I'm hearing always there, obligation. How does that relate to your role at Stockwell today?
Well, I think all of us as leaders, our organizations and people we work with, some days are really good and some days are not so good. But I think as you're leading an organization through change or growth or crisis in some cases, the steadiness, the calmness in playing your part in the organization is super critical. And I think those were lessons learned in younger days with me.
Mm-hmm. Caleb?
We heard a little bit about your mom and her impact on you. Tell us a little bit about your dad. What did he do for a living?
Yeah, so my dad was a roofer for 55 years, and in 45 years of those life, he was on the roof, building things and making things happen. So he was that. I learned from him great work ethic, great attitude. He had a saying, 80% of life is the attitude that you bring to the task, and I might even say it's more than that. But so he was a roofer, taught me great work ethic. Went to work every day and then came home and supported his family every day.
Well, that's amazing to be a hardworking roofer for 40 years. I did it for a summer. 4 months was enough for me. So tell me about, I'm interested to hear about the way you saw your dad carry himself. Do you kind of take some of that to work every day with the way you portray yourself after a good or a bad day?
Yeah, I try to emulate it, but I think I fell short of the level that he met. But he was up every day at 4:45 or 5 o'clock, went to work, and then came home and was an active participant in his family. And I think in all of my time around him, not once did I hear him say, "Wow, I'm sore, I'm tired, I'm hurt, or I can't go to work tomorrow." So I think he was a big influence on my life that way.
That's great. I want to hear also about some of your early jobs. How did you start out making money?
Yeah, so I said my earliest jobs were with my brother that was younger. He was a year younger. We had a small grass cutting business. We had a small business where we would shovel snow, or when we were maybe 13 or 14, we moved down the road into a town that had a bunch of antique shops. When they would sell things, we would go help people load it into their cars. So we had several small entrepreneurial businesses that we started maybe when we were 11 or 12.
So you had one business in one town, you moved to another and started another one. So it seems like you learned a little bit about sales and marketing at an early age. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, for sure. That was one. And then the next experience was I was a busboy at a restaurant, and I would tell you great lessons there dealing with different people. You could try different strategies. Some people wanted you very present. Some people wanted you a little bit more quiet, but a great job there also working with different people and understanding what they needed and making sure that you brought the food there hot and as quick as you could.
Were you just a busboy, or you moved on to other jobs in the restaurant?
Yeah. Or what did all that stuff, those young experiences making money, what's all that have to do with what you're doing nowadays with this rubber gasket company?
Well, I think each experience gives you a different set of skills, so a couple of things. You make up your mind what you want to do and how you want to do it. The second thing is you realize the importance of the customer or the client, and every one of those experiences, that was very important. That's something you take to the next piece or to the next. And then to Caleb's question again, went from busboy to waiter to bartender. And the lesson there is in a restaurant any given day, what can we do? What needs to be done? And I was able to step in and do just that for that day.
Perfect. Mr. Frank.
Speaking with you before the show, you were talking about your benefit mission statement at Stockwell. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so Stockwell's a company with 100-year history, but has continued to evolve itself in the journey. But the chairman, Bill Stockwell, has, additionally to business goals, has other goals. We want our business to be a positive member of the community. We want to make sure that we're providing a pathway for people to grow their careers and their income so that they can do better. We have an active program here where we're helping people come off of the sidelines of society, that if they were formerly incarcerated, we can bring them into the company, help grow them as folks. It strengthens our company, it strengthens our business, but it also allows us to do some positive things here in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm. Tom, what's the website address for this organization known as Stockwell Elastomerics?
So we're at stockwell.com, STOCKWELL.com.
Let me have that one more time.
Stockwell.com.
STOCKWELL.com. We've been speaking with Tom Rimel, who's president of Stockwell Elastomerics here on Executive Leaders Radio. It's Tom Rimel, president, Stockwell Elastomerics, and the chairman is Bill Stockwell, correct?
Bill Stockwell, yes.
Bill Stockwell. Good. Stick around. We will be back in a moment right after this quick break. Don't go away.
Recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, Executive Leaders Radio. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com. Simply visit ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable. Yes, this radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors for free exposure.
Back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Michael Sharp, founder and executive chairman, the Sharp Financial Group. Michael, what is the Sharp Financial Group? What are you doing?
The Sharp Financial Group is an integrated financial services company right outside of Philadelphia.
All righty. Where are you from originally? How many brothers and sisters? Where are you in the pecking order?
I am from Philadelphia. I am the oldest of three. I have a younger brother and a younger sister.
All righty. And you mentioned that you grew up in a row house in Philadelphia, so there must have been a lot of kids in the neighborhood. What were you doing 8 to 14 years old? What kind of stuff were you up to?
Mainly just playing outside. That's what you did from my neighborhood in Philadelphia. That's how we all grew up. And a lot of it, especially for the young boys, revolved around sports. That's kind of what we did all the time. Seemed like every day that was our main focus.
Caleb?
Hey, Michael, you're a big sports guy. So tell us about your favorite sport.
My favorite sports, too, is really baseball and basketball. I mean, I love all the sports. Basketball is probably my favorite.
What position did you play on the court, or what was your role on the team?
I was a shooting guard back in the day, a long, long time ago.
So you were just scoring points? Were you an assist man at all?
Not much of an assist man, mainly a scorer.
So as someone who was just scoring points, not giving up the ball much, did you evolve at all? Did you become more of a team player throughout your years?
Not so much as a player did I evolve, but I ended up coaching basketball, youth basketball, and really ended up learning the game a lot different than how I played the game, which was very much more of a team concept.
So I'm wondering how learning to become more of a team player and coach a team player, does that relate to your role as the founder and executive chairman at the Sharp Financial Group? Yes, without a doubt. I mean, we've tried to bring in a lot of the concepts from sports, mainly teamwork, and how to deliver a very integrated service to our clients, and also how to take care of each other as part of that team.
What do you mean by integrated services? What are you talking about?
Well, we have, instead of having just an accounting firm or just a wealth management firm, we have accounting, wealth management, mergers and acquisitions, venture capital, consulting, business advisory. The idea is that to bring all the different areas of a family or a business to that client.
Well, let me ask you a question. You mentioned you started off as playing basketball, and you used to like to shoot the ball yourself, and then you evolved into being a coach, where you were more of a coach. What's being more of a coach have to do with your role as the founder and executive chairman of the Sharp Financial Group?
Well, as a coach, I thought I'd like to be innovative. We like to play what we called a game of controlled chaos. And the idea is that we could do a lot of different things and in one game, on the defensive end, offensively, pressure all over the floor. And the idea with the business was kind of the same idea, where we can do a lot of different things for a family or a business, and deliver it out of just the one firm, out of our one organization.
Gotcha. Jim.
Michael, you mentioned in the green room that both parents worked, and for the most part, you were left alone and took care of your two younger brothers. How did that relate to, being a self-starter and your responsibility and all this teamwork and everything that you mentioned?
Well, I think because both my parents worked, I at a young age, I learned responsibility, because I was responsible for my brother and my sister, and just learned how the things that we needed to do without my parents always being around, in order to take care of myself, but also to make sure that my brother and sister were good as well.
You also mentioned your father loved watching you and your brothers play sports. What do you take away with that? How does that show up nowadays in what you do?
Well, I think that always meant something to me. My parents, my family was always close from the time we were kids. My parents taught us the biggest thing that we could ever do in life is to always be there for each other, the three kids. And I always felt like I wanted to do well for my mom and my dad. I know just in general in life, but I know my dad specifically when it came to accomplishments, whether it was basketball or business, or having, him see and be able to feel that all the work that he put in, him and my mom, for me, my brother, my sister, that I could help, make him feel that it was all worth something, that we turned out to be, successful people and working hard.
Did you mention you picked up a client, as a substantial client recently, and you were wishing your dad was there to see it?
Well, my dad always loved the big names, and he was a big basketball guy. And we have a number of retired and current, especially basketball, because I was, been involved so much in it. And one of them was Allen Iverson, who was one of his favorite players. And I know even him looking down now is very, very happy to see myself be involved with somebody like Allen.
Mm-hmm. Frank?
Mike, I heard a lot about basketball and taking care of your siblings growing up. I want to know, what kind of student were you in school?
I was a pretty decent student, mainly due to the hard work, and that's always been my thing, is about outworking, everybody else, the way I always looked at it. But it wasn't necessarily due to my raw intelligence, I would say.
How did you find time to manage all of that, the basketball, the taking care of the siblings, and being a good student as well?
It was hard. It just was a matter of, understanding what it was that you wanted to accomplish, being focused, and really just working hard. It wasn't anything elaborate. It was pretty simple what you had to do.
So what I'm gathering is it sounds like you're a very self-motivated individual, a coach, a teammate, a time manager, right? How does all of that relate to your wealth management business?
It relates great, because I've always looked at everything, as I said, from a sports concept. And the idea was, especially with the wealth management and our family office part that we do, is that everything I try to look at, you don't have to be necessarily an ultra high net worth individual or family for us to provide services along lines of what you would consider family office. Everybody we try to treat as a family office to do the best we can, different degrees of what they may need, but to bring our very best to each client and consider them not just a business, but a family, just like we do with the people in our own organization.
Mm-hmm. Jim?
Yeah, you mentioned something in the green room about how as you've gotten older, your priorities in your personal life have shifted. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you carry that and how that affects your business?
Well, I look at myself that I was very fortunate to grow up in the neighborhood that I did, with the neighbors I did, my parents, my family. And I also had the good fortune of coaching a lot of, I would say, disadvantaged kids, and got to see some of the things and how much more difficult it's been for them. And as I've gotten older and become more spiritual, I wanted to find a way for me, my organization, with what we do, to give back to those kids, to give them every opportunity to be successful in their lives, like the opportunity that myself, my brother, my sister got. It wasn't just all about money. It was about love and compassion and other things, just being there for these kids. They need people, and they need people to love them more than they do even money and things like that. And that's what I've tried to really dedicate a lot of what I do outside of my firm as I've gotten older now.
Mm-hmm. Spiritual as you've gotten older? What do you mean?
So spiritual is more, I could spend a lot of time on that, but really basically for me, it's to be able to learn, have the ability to do for yourself, to learn the different skills to help yourself. So especially when it comes to kids who don't necessarily have all of those opportunities, for us to be able to help them do that.
Website address for the Sharp Financial Group?
The website is sharpllc.com.
We've been speaking with Michael Sharp, founder and executive chairman of the Sharp Financial Group, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Caleb, can you give a rundown on who we've had on the air today, please?
Yes, we had an awesome show today, Herb. We had Bruce White, the managing partner of JKJ, Johnson, Kendall, Johnson, and Baum, president of Lehigh Valley Reilly Children's Hospital. Michael Sharp, founder and executive chairman of the Sharp Financial Group. And we had Tom Rimel, president of Stockwell, Elastomerics.
Excellent. I'd like to thank my co-hosts, including Jim Wilson, Newmark, Caleb Hoppus, Hanlon, and Frank Plum, Workplace Human Capital Management, for giving me a hand structuring the questions hopefully providing our listening audience an educational and entertaining show. I'd like to thank our listening audience for listening. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a radio show. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com. That's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. Thank you for joining us today, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.